Right, morning grade 11s. I have posted the homework solutions on Google Classroom. So please mark your homework on there. And then you need to copy all the notes that I'm going to do in this lesson. So this is now a different way of solving equations. And we say that we're solving equations by substitution. We call it the K method. Now this is different from the simultaneous equations that we've been doing. In the simultaneous equations, yes, we have been using substitution as well, but this is now when we actually just have one equation. We don't have two. All right, simultaneous equations, you have two equations with two variables, so you have to solve those by substitution. For this one, I'm just going to do this one example actually. We have a very complicated equation, all right? If you're looking at this equation, you can see that you have bracket squared. You have minus 14 times that same bracket. I hope that we can notice that we have the same bracket, and then minus 15 equal to 0. Now, what I want you guys to just notice, or maybe you can't notice it yet, let's just try and solve the equation as we would normally. Okay, if we have bracket squared, we're going to try and multiply that bracket out. So we're going to say that it is the same as x squared plus 2x multiplied by itself minus 14 times x squared is 2x, and then the minus 15. I could have multiplied that 14 into the brackets now. Okay, I'll do that just now. Okay, now we're going to have to FOIL these out. We have two binomials. So now we're going to get x squared times x squared is x to the power of 4. X squared times 2x is plus 2x to the power of 3. Then we multiply these two. We have 2x times x squared. That again gives us 2x to the power of 3. Then we have to do the last. So we get 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Okay, so that we get when we FOIL those brackets out. Now let's multiply the negative 14 in negative 14 squared. And then if we do negative 14 times 2x, we get negative 28x minus 15 equal to 0. Okay, now we would have to simplify this. We have an x to the 4. That's the only x to the 4 that we have. We have two x cubed terms here. So if I add those two together, I have 2x cubed plus 2x cubed. That's 4x cubed. Then we have 4x squared minus 14x squared. That's negative 15x squared. We have a negative 28x. And we have a minus 15. Now, guys, this is not a quadratic equation, all right? Usually when we have an equation, everything is equal to 0. We try and use the quadratic formula for that, but the quadratic formula only works for quadratic equations. So if that was the equation, right, just 10x squared minus 28x minus 15, you could use quadratic formula for that. Now, because we have an x squared, that we're essentially squaring when we multiply bracket out, we end up with an x to the 4. And guys, we don't know how to solve an x to the 4 equation. Right, you can try and figure something out. You can try and do it by inspection, I suppose. But we haven't actually learned about that. Okay. So I want you to underline this bracket. The fact that we see that we have an x squared inside the bracket that we are then squaring, that should tell us that this equation is actually too complicated to solve in the traditional way. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to introduce a different variable, and we are going to use k. And what I want you to notice is that this bracket, and I've mentioned it before, but this bracket is repeated. Okay, so there's an x squared plus 2x here, and then there's an x squared plus 2x there. So we are going to say let k be equal to x squared plus 2x. We are introducing a new variable. We are introducing a k. There was no k in this equation, just to start with. We are taking the repeated bracket, right? The repeated expression. I'll add that in here. X squared plus 2x is a repeated expression. It might not always be in brackets, okay, but it's a repeated expression. So we are taking that repeated expression and then we are making it equal to another variable. Okay, you can actually use any letter that you want, but k is usually what I go with. So now we're going to rewrite this equation, and in place of x squared plus 2x, we're going to use k. So here we have x squared plus 2x squared. We're going to write that as k squared minus 14 times x squared plus 2x, which we said is k. So minus 14 times k minus 15 equal to 0. Right, now if you look at the equation, you should see that this is an easier one to solve. This is actually now a quadratic equation because the variable that we're working now is a k, right? And the highest exponent that we have is a 2. So this is now a quadratic equation. Now it's up to you. Remember, I say you on Friday, if you want to, you can factorize this, put your brackets both equal to 0 and solve, or you can use quadratic expression. But guys, if you're using quadratic formula to solve for the variable here, you can't say x now. All right, because in this equation, we're working with k. So you have to say k is equal to, let me just quickly write on the three values. A is 1, B is negative 14, and C is negative 15. Right, so we can use the quadratic formula like we have been doing so far. Negative B, so negative 14, plus or minus the square root of B squared is negative 14 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 15. That is then all over 2a, 2 times 1. All right, you would then type that into the calculator, get your two answers. Okay, so let's just do that quickly. Plus the square root, oh goodness, sorry. I'll just start again. 14 plus the square root of 14 squared, because negative 14 squared and 14 squared will give you the same answer, right? Minus 4 times 1 times negative 15 over 2. So for one answer, we're getting k is 15, or if we use the arrow to go to that plus and change it to minus, we're getting that k is negative 1. All right, so now we've solved for k. We found two values for k. But guys, this question is asking us to solve for x. Remember, there was no k in the original equation. We introduced k. All right, so we have two answers here that actually aren't answers to the equation, to the actual thing that we want to do. Now, what I want you to notice is that we say that k is x squared plus 2x. So that means that x squared plus 2x, k is equal to 15. But then also x squared plus 2x have to be equal to the second answer that we got for k. Because x squared plus 2x is k. So this is going to give us two quadratic equations. We're going to have to make x squared plus 2x, which we said is k, equal to our first value that we got for k. X squared plus 2x equal to 15, or x squared plus 2x equal to negative 1. Now we have two quadratic equations that will allow us to solve for x. I'm going to do the first one together. So say x squared plus 2x. When you need to move this 15 over, remember for a quadratic equation, we need everything on the one side equal to 0. So I'm doing that there. Again, you can factorize if you want to, or you can use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to do negative b, so negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so the 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which again, negative 15. That is all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. A is 1 in this case. All right, that gives us two answers for x. So we're going to do negative 2 plus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times 1, 2a. So we're getting x is equal to 3, or we go with our arrow and we move that. We change the plus to a minus, we're getting x is equal to negative 5. Guys, we know that in a quadratic equation, we're supposed to get 2 answers, right? But remember that this original equation is actually not a quadratic equation. It's actually a 4th degree equation, meaning we're actually supposed to get 4 answers. Okay, so here we're going to solve this equation again, and that will give us the other answer. All right, so we need to do x squared plus 2x. Now this minus, when we move it over, will become plus 1. Again, you can factorize this equation if you want, or you can use the quadratic formula. So for the quadratic formula, b is 2, so it's going to be negative b, negative 2, plus or minus, this is square root of 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 1 again, all over 2a, so 2 times 1. All right, now we're going to type this all in. We're going to do negative 2 plus this is the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. You don't have to type those all in, right? Over 2. Okay, we're getting x equal to negative 1. Now, guys, if you change that plus to a minus, let's see what happens. We're getting the same answer. All right, so I'm just going to put a different color pen here. You can write it in pencil. You don't actually have to write it in at all. You're getting the same answer twice. Now, we haven't actually seen this happening before, but we have spoke about it. Remember when we spoke about the naive roots? We said if delta, remember delta is the value that is under the square root in your quadratic formula. We said if delta is equal to 0, you will get equal roots. You will get equal answers. So you will get 2 answers that are equal to the same number. Do you see that? That is happening here. We're getting x equals negative 1 when we put a plus there. And when we're getting x equals negative 1, we put a minus there. The reason for that is because if we look at the value that is under the square root here, 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 1 times 1 and is 4. So essentially what we're doing here, the value that we're finding, which is this delta, remember, is 4 minus 4, which is 0. So this is actually the square root of 0. Right? And we all know the square root of 0 is just 0. So when we're actually doing this calculation, we're saying negative 2 plus 0, which is negative 2 divided by 2. That gives us negative 1. Then we say negative 2 minus 0, which again is negative 2. We're dividing that by 2, which again is negative 1. All right, so we are essentially getting 4 answers, but 2 of them are equal. All right, so I'm just going to make an extra note here at the bottom because it does link into some stuff that we've spoken about before. We just haven't actually seen it yet. So here, I'm just going to say that delta is equal to 0, therefore equal roots. Okay, you can just add that as a note at the bottom. Guys, if you are actually writing down these answers, you don't have to write the second x equals negative 1. Okay, that's a repetition of that answer. So if you see that happens, that you're getting the same answer twice, you only have to write that answer once. Okay, I'll put it in brackets. Only have to write x equals negative 1 once. If you want to write it twice, that's fine. You use a mark for doing that. You don't have to. Okay, you will only get a mark for this answer here. You won't get an answer for each of the things. Well, in this case, you might get an answer for both of those because different values. Okay, I'm just going to recap what we did now because we got a bit. We went off on a bit of a tangent here. These types of questions, and you will have to do this in all of the questions that I give you for homework. If you set you are ending up with an equation is way too complicated, especially an equation that will give you an x to the 4. You need to look for a repeated expression in the original equation, right? So I'll write that on the side. look for a repeated expression in the original equation and make that expression equal to k. All right, so that would actually be the first step. That is what we did there. Then you're going to solve for k. Then in this line, you are going to take answers for k and make them equal to the repeat expression again. All right, so make the repeated expression equal to the values of k. And then from there, you are going to actually solve for x in both of those equations that you set up in this line. Okay, and that is what you are going to be doing in the whole exercise that I am going to giving you guys. So I'll show you quickly. You can find this exercise on Google Classroom if you want, but I'll also put it under the camera just on my phone. Maybe, yeah, I'll put a screenshot of this. I'll upload it to Google Classroom just now. So this is the exercise that I want you guys to do. You are not going to do all of them, all right? I just want you to do the first 4. Okay, so you're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I want you to notice that in each of these equations, there is a repeated expression. In the first one, this is quite similar to the one we just did. In the first one, it's the bracket. That is what you are going to make equal to k. In the second one is what we have here, y squared plus 6y. We see that is repeated in the denominator. So you're going to make that k. You're going to have minus 35 over k equal to. That is going to be an equation with fractions. Remember, how do we solve an equation with fractions? We multiply each term by the LCD. You're going to do the same thing here. Again, bracketed expression is just repeated, so that you're going to make equal to k. And in number 4, 2x plus 3x. There we have the 2x squared plus 3x. That is what you are going to make equal to k. All right, so on the exercise, I will post it on Google Classroom now, just as a screenshot of that exercise. So your homework is going to do numbers 1 to 4 of this exercise to solve for x. First, you're going to have to put in a k, solve for k, and then use those answers to solve for x. All right, that is homework for tomorrow, guys. I'll be back tomorrow, so we are going to carry on. Thank you.